Prince Harry, by your very well-sourced report, has fallen in love with another woman.
Yes.
Please, spill.
Fun. Isn't it fun? And
it's incredible.
Harry has met some new type of companion in Montecito, a female companion who he loved.
Meghan is livid. Harry has met someone who is his age, with whom he is in love, and who is in love with him.
Harry was moving to the United Kingdom with the children. It clearly was not with Meghan.
Harry and Meghan have understood that if they didn't jump, he was going to be pushed.
Nobody saw this coming. Music lady Colin Campbell just dropped the most explosive revelation of the year. Harry did not move to the UK for his dying father. He moved for a woman. And the moment Meghan found those texts on music, his phone, the entire Sussex empire began to collapse.
This is like a close friendship where he's seeking companionship from someone else, and Meghan Markle discovered that the text messages were being swapped.
She is his age. She is financially independent. She does not need his title, his royal connections, or his name to open any doors for her. She was living a perfectly complete and fulfilling life long before Harry ever walked into it.
The reality is that the whole thing has been unsustainable. I mean, this degree of malice and toxicity and destructiveness could not have continued at the rate it was going.
And according to Lady Colin Campbell, people with verified official governmental positions inside the United States have confirmed something that has been quietly building behind closed doors for quite some time. Harry is in love with this woman, music, and she is in love with him. These sources did not respond to Lady C reaching out. They approached her directly. She did not go searching for this story. They came to her because they knew she had both the credibility and the courage to say it publicly without backing down under pressure.
I have received information from, as some people say, stateside, from actually people who are very well placed and very well connected. And they have official functions, official capacities, official recognition, and they have provided me with some really very interesting information. Two massively interesting bits of information. Harry has met someone who is his age, with whom he is in love, and who is in love with him.
She describes them as liberal Democrats with real, traceable, official governmental connections. People who witnessed exactly what has been happening and decided that someone needed to finally speak up about it.
So I'm just covering myself, having provided the information that I was given, which I actually was absolutely stunned to receive. And I tell you, I didn't invite it. It came to me totally unexpectedly, and it came through very, very reputable, provable, liberal Democrat sources in the United States.
Lady C was extremely precise about the language she used for legal reasons. She made one thing completely clear. She was not saying Harry was having an affair. She was saying he had met someone he loves, someone who loves him back. Two consenting adults in their 40s living in the same community.
I am saying that two healthy, vigorous 40-something-year-olds in love would never resort to carnality. Oh no, of course not. They would stay on the highest planes of philosophy, discussing the relative merits of Kant versus Schopenhauer.
She invited you to draw your own conclusions from that. The woman lives in or very near Montecito. They have already been seen together on more than one occasion, and they have so far successfully managed to keep the cameras completely away.
And I think you can draw your own conclusions as to where I'm coming from when I say something like that, because because this is the United Kingdom, for legal reasons. If you accuse somebody who is married of having a sexual affair outside of their marriage, that can be regarded as defamatory.
But here's the detail that changes the entire shape of this story. Meghan did not hear about this through a mutual friend. She did not piece it together from whispers at a social gathering. She found out the way nobody ever wants to find out. She picked up Harry's phone and she read the texts herself.
Harry, the generous interpretation, Harry is no longer madly in love. My interpretation is he's no longer in love with her. The scales have fallen from his eyes. And then you drop this bombshell that there is another woman in the photo and not in the picture. And not only that, I'm so excited. My words are tumbling out. Not only that, Meghan discovered this affair by discovering text messages on his phone.
Harry spent years telling the entire world that his father's affair destroyed his childhood. He wrote about it in detail in Spare. He discussed it in documentary after documentary. He made it completely clear in interview after interview that what Charles did to Diana was, in his own words, simply unforgivable. The betrayal, the double life, the years of watching his mother suffer quietly while the man who was supposed to love her above all others pretended everything was perfectly fine.
I also think that she will, though, I'm not sure that they're going to be able to maintain Montecito indefinitely, but they certainly need to maintain the illusion of having Montecito as a residence at the moment.
And now here we are. Same pattern, same family, a different generation, and a different prince. Doing the exact same thing he spent years telling the world he would never do. If you needed one single moment that captured the complete tragedy of what Harry has become, this is it.
How can he sue me? He can't sue me. This is precisely why I have made the point that I'm not saying that he's been having an affair. He can't sue me. You can't sue for somebody for saying that you're in love with someone else and that they're in love with you. There's no crime in being in love with someone.
But there is something else that deserves to be brought fully back into the light right now. Music, something that most people moved past, but that looks completely different given everything we now know. Cast your mind back to Paris Fashion Week. Meghan posted a casual video to her Instagram. She was in the back of a luxury car with her feet stretched out, filming her shoes, presenting herself as effortlessly carefree and chic for her followers.
Sick and twisted. That is the reaction to Meghan Markle's video of herself driving through the streets of Paris, very, very close to where her mother-in-law died in a car accident. The one that she and her husband constantly cite as a danger to Meghan Markle. The one that Prince Harry obviously has a ton of trauma about. Meghan Markle is sitting there in a car, putting her feet up, congratulating herself on a job well done.
The route she was traveling, music, passed within 1 mile of the Pontelma Tunnel, the tunnel where Princess Diana died. Harry has spoken about that tunnel more than almost any other place on this earth. He was 12 years old when his entire world came apart in that underpass. It is the deepest wound of his entire life. A grief that never fully left him no matter how many years passed. And there was his wife feet up filming content.
The real thing that came about, of course, is that people noticed, hey, you're very, very close to the tunnel where Princess Diana died. And then you're showing yourself in a car, putting your feet up on the seat as if to say, I've done an amazingly good job. We've had an amazingly successful Paris trip.
Her team later claimed she had no idea where she was. But people traveling at Meghan's level of security and public profile do not move through foreign cities without advanced route planning and precise location awareness. The question was never whether she knew. The question was how any woman who genuinely loved her husband could be so completely indifferent to the most painful place on earth for the man she married.
Meghan is doing her own thing. Harry, go whatever with you. I'm doing what I want to do.
Multiple commentators used one specific word to describe it: sociopathic. Diana would have recognized this dynamic without a moment's hesitation. She lived inside something very similar for years. And she would have looked at that little boy who walked behind her coffin and broke the heart of an entire generation. And she would have known exactly what was happening to him long before any of us did.
I think this is a typical Meghanian stunt on her part, because Meghan has a long track record of creating situations, and at the 99th hour, she manages to avoid the consequences by doing something unexpected. And this is unexpected, and it's certainly unexpected where the feds are concerned, because they were dealing with the fact that Harry was living in the United States of America.
When a wife discovers her husband has fallen in love with someone else, the ground disappears completely beneath her. The future she had imagined collapses overnight. Grief takes over everything else. That is not what happened here. Lady C's sources used one very specific word to describe Meghan's reaction when she found those texts on Harry's phone. Livid. Not heartbroken, not devastated, not disconsolate, livid. Music. And that single word tells you more about this marriage than any interview, any Netflix documentary, or any carefully constructed Instagram post.
Meghan is livid, but I'm going to quote, but not enough to give up on her brand, which includes Harry's connection to the king, nor is Harry about to leave his children, whom he loves dearly.
A woman who truly loves her husband feels grief when she discovers he loves someone else. A woman who sees her husband as her most valuable business asset feels pure fury when that asset starts moving quietly toward the exit. Meghan was not losing her soulmate. She was losing the engine that powers her entire commercial operation. His royal bloodline. His direct connection to King Charles. His name sitting on everything she has music ever built. The brand they created together stands on one foundation, and one foundation only. The story of two people so completely devoted to each other that they were willing to walk away from a kingdom, from family, country, titles, and legacy just to remain together. That story is their product. That story is what Netflix paid over $100 million to own.
If Harry is beginning to discover that he, and not his brother and father, he is the one who was trapped, and they weren't. And he's beginning to wriggle out from the pincer vices that Meghan has had clamped down upon him, along with her claw.
Without Harry, Meghan Markle is a former cable television actress with a jam company that very few people actually purchased, and she knows it.
All the money that came in was basically as a result of Harry. Meghan may have cut the deals, but Harry's existence is the one that made the deals possible. So the Netflix deal was originally, and it was never, as you and I both know, $100 million. But the fact of the matter is, it was a nice, tidy sum.
Look at what was unfolding long before those texts were ever discovered over 40 days with no shared public appearance between them. Separate Instagram strategies, separate Netflix contracts, two PR teams that were not even communicating with each other. When they announced their so-called professional separation, most people treated it as a routine business decision. But your instincts were far sharper than that. You recognized it for exactly what it was, the first public crack in something that had been quietly fracturing for a very long time.
Harry's interest in the relative merits philosophically of Wittgenstein versus Kant are not going to be able to be revitalized. So I think that's something that she needs to be vigilant about. And as long as it suits her to be his wife, she needs to be vigilant about that.
Remember the Oprah interview? Remember sitting in your living room watching two people on that sunlit California patio, telling the entire world they were like salt and pepper shakers that simply could not exist without one another. The grand love story, the enormous sacrifice, the extraordinary courage it took to walk away from everything, all for each other. Knowing what we know today, that interview looks completely different. The signs were visible long before Lady C said a single word publicly.
Harry and Meghan's time is running out. But what has happened over the past few days is a remarkable shifting of the goalpost. They think you are stupid. They think we are stupid. No. The mainstream media is stupid for buying into their PR bullshit. How many times will they learn? What they say is never the truth. What they say is usually the beginning of a negotiation, which always ends up badly. Finally, confirmation to the New York Times on the record, this is something that none of the British publications got, that their intention to move is very short-sighted indeed.
Harry in Geneva alone. Harry in Chicago alone. Harry in New York alone. Meghan at a children's hospital gala alone. Meghan at a major tribute event alone. Two people who constructed an entire global brand around their inseparable bond, spending weeks and months at a time living completely separate lives, music on different continents.
Her lividness has nothing to do with emotion. It's all about the brand. And it's about her interests and her self-interest. And, as long as she has no other options.
Friends were asked directly about Harry spending extended periods in the Cotswolds while Meghan remained in California. The response was a casual shrug, as though two married people living thousands of miles apart was simply a practical arrangement, rather than a description of a marriage operating under enormous and unspoken strain.
But they have been making appearances separately for quite some time. I believe it was last year when Meghan and Harry announced they were separating professionally, that their brands were parting ways. And I thought to myself back then, this is the precursor. This is the precursor to an actual emotional marital separation.
Then came the vow renewal story, quietly floated to sympathetic press contacts. And here is something worth understanding clearly. Couples who are genuinely happy do not float vow renewal stories to journalists. That particular move exists exclusively in Hollywood for one specific purpose: to convince a watching public that the original vows have not already quietly and irreversibly disintegrated. The Wall Street Journal raised the possibility of divorce. Vanity Fair followed shortly afterward. Two of the most establishment publications in the world, not tabloids, music, not gossip channels, gently placing the idea into mainstream public conversation.
Harry and Meghan have leaked to Vanity Fair, but do you think they seriously leaked that Meghan was kept waiting while Harry went in alone, or that the children were kept waiting with Meghan while the King and Queen received Harry on his own, then received the whole lot of them?
And the Daily Mail royal correspondent, the journalist specifically assigned to cover this couple full-time, used 4 words that said everything. The veil is lifting. She was not talking about any physical veil. She was talking about Harry finally beginning to see clearly the woman he married. And what he found has changed everything.
The girl, woman, girlfriend, friend, however you want to put it, and I'm putting it like this for legal reasons, resides, and I'm not going to say if it's actually in Montecito or near Montecito, but it's in the environs, let's put it that way.
Now we reach the part that mainstream media completely refuses to touch. The part that most channels will not go anywhere near regardless of the evidence placed directly in front of them. The same U.S. government sources who confirmed Harry's new relationship delivered a second piece of information to Lady C. And this one reaches far beyond a struggling marriage. It strikes directly at the constitutional foundations of the British monarchy itself. Leet was carried and birthed by a surrogate from the state of Colorado. She was transferred to Montecito by private jet immediately after birth. Non-disclosure agreements were signed by every single person who was present at any point during this process. The entire arrangement was pre-planned music and executed in complete secrecy from the very beginning.
Lilibet was definitely carried and birthed by a surrogate from the state of Colorado, transferred to Montecito by private jet. It was all pre-arranged, and NDAs were signed by all who were present, and I'm not going to go into any further detail. But this information does go into considerably further detail, but I'm not going to go into it.
Now, consider what we already know completely independently of these sources. Thomas Markle Jr. stated publicly on the record that Meghan's first husband personally told him she had a hysterectomy in her late 20s. Neither Meghan nor her first husband has ever denied that claim. Not once, not publicly, not through their legal representatives. 7 full years of relentless international media coverage and complete silence on that one specific point.
According to Thomas Markle Jr., Trevor told him that Meghan had a hysterectomy. Meghan has never denied it. Trevor Engelson has never denied it.
Then there is the footage that millions of people watched and questioned openly. The hospital video of Meghan, supposedly 9 months pregnant, moving in ways that any woman who has carried a child full-term knows, music, are simply not physically possible. The moment at Birkenhead where the bump visibly shifted position in a way that defied basic human anatomy.
If Meghan had no womb, how was she able to produce 2 children? And also, how was she able to get pregnant between the births of Archie and Lily and produce a fetus at a stage where, in fact, the remnants of a miscarriage would have been simply liquid, and that supposed solidity was then handed over to Harry for him to scratch the earth under a banyan tree and plant it.
The Netflix ultrasound image presented as definitive evidence of pregnancy, music, with every single identifying patient detail carefully and deliberately removed from the screen. They offered what appeared to be proof, while simultaneously ensuring that proof could never actually be independently verified by anyone.
And Meghan and Harry, may I point out, have actually addressed this issue. They addressed it in their Netflix series when to prove that she gave birth to Archie. They aired a clip of a scan of a fetus with all of the identifying features removed. So, in fact, at the very moment that they're providing proof, they are making sure that the proof cannot stand up, because why would, if it were a scan of Archie, why were all of the identifying features removed?
Here's why this reaches far beyond celebrity gossip. Archie and Lilith currently sit in the official line of succession to the British throne. British constitutional law is extremely specific about what that position legally requires. If surrogates were used without proper legal process, and those children were placed in the line of succession regardless, the constitutional implications are almost too significant to state plainly.
Speculation that Lilibet was born in Colorado, citing her birth certificate number 105 as indicating she was born in the Centennial State rather than the Golden State. That was actually true until 1996. Now California's number is 105 while Colorado's is 106. You can see that other Californian-based celebrities all have 105 in their children's birth certificates. I always like to double-check things myself, and I thought I would share the results. So in conclusion, just for the record, Lilibet was born in California in 2021.
Public is warm and carefully constructed. Harry missed his father. He wanted his children to experience their English heritage. He felt a deep calling back music to his homeland. He wanted Archie to learn cricket and rugby on English soil. Here is what was actually unfolding behind that story, music, at exactly the same time. On the 11th of August, weeks before this announcement reached the public, federal investigators convened specifically to examine the paperwork Harry submitted when he entered the United States as a semi-permanent resident. The central concern was direct and serious.
They're moving back to the United Kingdom because Harry is endangered as a result of the feds. On the 11th of August, there was a meeting with the feds where they were inquiring into and looking into the paperwork that he submitted. I mean, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think it was in 2021, about and his visa entry.
Harry had publicly admitted to extensive illegal drug use in his own best-selling memoir. American immigration documents contain very specific and direct questions about exactly this subject. Federal officials had questions that required answers, and those questions were not going to disappear on their own. In the United States of America, it does not matter who your father is. It does not matter that your grandmother was the most recognized woman on earth. Lying on federal immigration paperwork carries mandatory sentencing. 5 years, no exceptions granted for royal connections or royal blood.
And that there is a strong belief by the feds that Harry lied on his paperwork to be able to gain admission to the United States as, I suppose you could say, semi-permanent resident.
9 days after that August federal meeting, Harry and Meghan announced they were relocating to the United Kingdom immediately. But sitting underneath the legal urgency is something else entirely. Something almost strategically clever about the specific timing of their departure. By leaving in August 2026, Harry and Meghan completed precisely 6 full tax years of non-UK residency. Under British tax law, maintaining non-residente status for more than 5 complete years shields overseas earnings from UK capital gains tax. A senior London tax expert described music, the exit timing as immaculate. They are not simply running from federal investigators. They are simultaneously protecting whatever financial assets remain after years of catastrophic court losses, failed streaming deals, and legal costs that have mounted to extraordinary levels.
It's interesting that all of this dovetails with the feds coming after Harry for having possibly falsified his application forms, because I don't think that they would have moved quite so quickly and quite so decisively had they not discovered that the feds...
When Harry and Meghan visited King Charles at Highgrove, the sequence of events inside that house sent a message so clear that anyone with any knowledge of royal protocol understood it without needing a single word of explanation. Harry was received by the king first completely alone. Then the children were brought through also without Meghan present, and only at the very end after both Harry and the children had already spent private time with the king separately. Music. Was Meghan finally permitted to enter? Nothing in a royal residence happens accidentally. Music. The king was communicating something with complete precision and absolute deliberateness. You are not family. You are an attachment, and not a particularly welcome one. Meghan reportedly arrived carrying a list of specific demands. She left having received none of them. She waited in a corridor while conversations she was excluded from took place behind closed doors.
Harry will ever be welcomed back as a working royal. I think that if Harry is going to have any tolerable relationship with his family, it has to be without Meghan, because she has proven to be so poisonous and so destructive, and they know what she is, and they don't trust her, and they'll never trust her. But that doesn't mean that Harry is ever going to be allowed back in as a working royal. I don't think this will ever happen.
The woman who spent years publicly insisting the palace was hostile and unwelcoming to her walked directly into that atmosphere and found she had absolutely nothing left with which to counter it. Because something fundamental has changed. For years, Meghan maintained complete control over Harry. And through Harry, she held a certain quiet leverage over the royal family itself. If Harry is genuinely pulling away emotionally, if the relationship Lady C described is real, then that leverage has collapsed entirely. The king receiving Harry first and alone was not simply protocol for its own sake. It was the royal family signaling something extremely precise. We know exactly what is happening. We have been waiting patiently for this moment, and the balance of power has just shifted in a direction that Meghan did not plan for and cannot reverse. Every channel frames Harry the same way. A man slowly waking up. A man who was manipulated for years, music, and is finally finding his way back to who he really was. Let us be completely honest about something. Harry is a grown man who made every single choice with his eyes completely open. He put his name on spare. Every accusation against his family was his decision alone. He sat across from Oprah and made allegations that shook an institution built over centuries. When asked about his father's cancer diagnosis, his response, music, was chilling. He said he had his own family now. Complete indifference toward a man who had just been told he was seriously ill. Thomas Markle, Meghan's elderly father, has suffered multiple strokes waiting for a phone call that never came. This couple flew specifically to see King Charles. They never mentioned the grandfather, who has never once been permitted to meet his own grandchildren. 2,800 people liked one comment that said everything your instincts told you from the very beginning. Harry is not a victim. He is equally complicit. And the audience that saw through both of them from day one was never wrong. Not once. Everything is converging simultaneously. A secret relationship. Federal investigators. Unanswered questions that refuse to stay buried. A marriage held together by nothing except mutual necessity. While all of this continues unfolding, William and Catherine have stayed completely silent. No briefings, no planted stories, just quiet, dignified service to the country that chose them. Your loyalty to them was never misplaced. You saw the truth long before anyone else was willing to say it out loud.